Hey, good morning, everybody. Learning and motivation. Today's presentation, we're talking about schedules of reinforcement in children. My article was focused on children with ADHD compared to children without ADHD and looking at which a better method of coaching or instructing would be modeling versus verbal instructions. And this experiment was set up by Neef et al. In 2004, creating two scenarios of math problems that the children would attempt to complete in a given time period of 5 to 10 minutes. And this experiment is based on matching law, which we've talked about in class, the amount of effort being roughly equal to the reinforcement that's coming in that they're going to be receiving. And the question was, how should these problems be approached? And the two methods that were coaching the children in the best way to earn the most points, which were the reinforcers used in the experiment, were verbal instructions or modeling, which is like learning by copying when the instructor would do the activity and show them the best method on the computer to finish the math problems. They would copy and do what the instructor did. And I have Snickers. I've got comic books here. I wish I had some toys and other stuff, but these were items that the children could purchase at a store that the experimenters had set up. That was based on like a point currency that once the children received points from their sessions, they could purchase these items. So it was a lot of fun. I wish I could do it too. Um, but these points were administered randomly, whether the kids had completed the problems or not, on a variable interval schedule between 15 seconds and every 240 seconds over that 5 minute period. And initially going in, it was hypothesized that ADHD children would not really be as sensitive to changes in the schedules of reinforcement, but that typical children would be more sensitive, that there would be a difference there in sensitivity to the reinforcement. And it turns out that the children were actually very similar in their results. That ADHD students did not show sensitivity really. The only time when their behavior changed was when timers were introduced into the equation when they were doing the activity. That's when they showed changes in their choices. But the bottom line of this experiment was the children's behavior was really determined by the sense of internal regulation that they had. So the sense of rules going in, the instructor's guidance through coaching, whether it was modeling or instructions, didn't really have a ton of control. They didn't have all the control. Ultimately, the children decided to approach the problems how they wanted to. But very interesting experiment, and I'll hand it off.
All right, so in my article, we looked at schedules of reinforcement and the effects it could have on non-compliance and manning training. In this article, we had two participants. We had Ian, a 7-year-old boy with a sensory processing disorder, along with Jack, a 10-year-old boy with autism. And it is also important to mention that both of these kids had a history of aggression. So we had two conditions. We had a tangible and we had an escape condition. In the tangible condition, these kids were allowed to play with whatever it is that they wanted, whether it was a toy or an iPad or anything of that sort. Whereas in the escape condition, these kids were asked to give it up and work for that time being. Each condition was about 45 seconds and was triggered by both a verbal cue along with a bracelet. We expected kids to man within 30 seconds of getting through each condition. And if they did, then they were given an iPad as a reinforcement. The goal was to get these kids to move through 3 consecutive sessions with 100% compliance. We did see that this was the case for Jack, and he did slowly get better at it. However, with Ian, he became extremely aggressive every time he was asked to give something up. So because of this, we made a change in the approach, whereas rather than changing the schedule every 45 seconds, it would reset every single time he was aggressive. This basically meant that he would stay in the escape condition up until his behavior changed and proper manding was achieved. Eventually, his behavior did change, meaning that our findings were multiple schedules may help maintain compliance for some, but not all participants, and chain schedules may be more effective as they are also decreasing aggression at the same time. We do have a few limitations, one being, of course, that the verbal and visual cue of the bracelet might have caused the manding rather than the actual scheduling itself. We also had no opportunity for replication, meaning that we don't know if multiple or chain schedules are better or multiple two chain schedules. We really only did this on two participants, so our area is kind of small. We also conducted this in a clinical therapy room, which really doesn't allow us to say that these findings would be the same in a classroom or even a home environment. Future research overall should just look at more extensive interventions, whether this means changing the time frame from 45 seconds to a minute or a minute to 5 minutes. Who knows, just changing those aspects might lead to different outcomes, along with looking at kids with different disorders, because as we all know, there's a lot of different kids with different disorders and different temperaments and things of that sort that can all factor into how these schedules really do work.
Lastly, in this preceding article published by the Association of Behavioral Analysis International demonstrates differential reinforcement through lag scheduling and functional communication training. In this procedural study, we are introduced to two male participants with autism. One is 23 and the other is 10. So the purpose of this study is to really focus on the evaluation of the effects behind lag scheduling and functional communication training in the histories of these two participants in challenging behaviors. And we also see in this study that they were put through variable levels of stimuli to record man responses. So some of these stimuli included the iPad activation, card exchange, micro switch activation, vocal requests, and for one of the participants, a puzzle. And so we see with the abstract goals that they involve measuring the reinforcement of behavior with both negative and positive conditioning through exposure to these variety of stimuli. And with reinforcement, that is the target increase of the behaviors. And so experimenters provided 30 seconds to a minute of these stimuli and recorded differential response behaviors that came out of aggression through these participants, from smacking, hitting, throwing objects at somebody, or invading someone's personal space with their hands. And so with functional communication training, we see here in the sequencing that there is the pre-prompt, vocal prompt, gestural prompt, and the physical guidance, which are all forms of man topography that occur when the participant demonstrates independence. So with our analysis, we see that embedding lag scheduling into behavioral studies show utility in targeting man responses that are sought to be mitigated. And with functional communication training procedures, we see that they are very useful in preventing recurrent behaviors, such as aggression in individuals with autism. And then the treatment reinforces these target mans. So as we come to our concluding measurements, we see that lag scheduling is really prevalent in functional communication training as we try to decrease the aggression in these participants. And so as we further see in the results, they had a lot of very similar results when it came to the experimental design. And so the experimental design that was used within the study was the ABC-BCAC reversal design, where the A was the baseline, the B was one of the lag schedules of reinforcement, 0, and the other one, the lag 1 schedule within the functional communication training. And this really helped justify the effects that come with functional communication training in combination with the different lag schedules, as they focused on the varied man responding and the challenging behaviors that played a larger variety of response mans in the subjects. And this really challenged the behaviors analyzed through variety lag schedule reinforcement. Here are our references, and I hope you enjoyed listening. Thank you.